What's up, guys? It's Chris. Here to do a different kind of video for a different kind of cat. Um, Honestly, I wasn't going to make a video on this, but my homeboy Jason asked me if I was going to, said I should, so figured why not do a quick one or a short one. It's basically on the unfortunate passing today of Randy the Macho Man Savage. Yeah, I found out about the news. I was watching ESPN this morning, and it was on the bottom of the screen on the little crawl. I was surprised to see it on there because normally when a pro wrestler dies, you're not going to see it on ESPN, but it just goes to show how much of a cultural impact that Randy Savage has had, since the beginning of his career. Not the beginning of his career, but, based on his career, I guess you should say. I was a big Randy Macho Savage fan. I was a fan of wrestling, in the 80s when it was in its heyday on television, in my opinion. And Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat were probably my three favorites at that time. Definitely Savage. He was one of those. He was a great performer, great on the mic, and just one of the best. He's one of those guys that could play both a good heel and a good face. But, either way, I think if you're a fan of him, you're going to root for him. If he's one of those, even as a kid, if he turned heel, I'd still root for him. And I think, obviously as a child, before wrestling was really exposed as being, worked or whatever you want to call it, he was one of those guys that I was really thought was legit. He's one of those guys that actually his persona, you never knew if it was real or not. He's one of those guys that you would think that outside of the ring, he might be the same maniacal character, just that unstable. A very distinguishable voice as well, not just a distinguishable voice in pro wrestling, but one of, the most distinguishable voices in, the culture or America. You hear that, oh yeah, and you automatically pretty much know who it is if you've ever watched even a second of wrestling or know anything about it. So, yeah, loved his match. Actually, when I was a kid, there's two pay-per-views I remember, maybe three. I distinctly remember my parents ordering, well, two in particular. WrestleMania 3, where he had this great match against Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And, of course, one of the best matches of all time, still regarded as. And I also saw, I don't remember what number it was. I believe it was a WrestleMania, though, maybe in 6 or 7, where they had a tournament to decide either, I think, who was going to be the champion or who was going to face Hulk Hogan for the championship. I don't remember exactly what the setup was, but I do remember that Randy Savage was one of the two guys I was rooting for in that tournament, along with the natural Butch Reed. Butch didn't go too far in the tournament, but Savage would go on to win it, which I was hyped for. I think after that they had the Mega Powers, and then, of course, the dissolution of them, which was probably my favorite storyline of wrestling as a kid, or when I was younger. Just that whole feud for that year or two. One of the best of all time in pro wrestling history, in my opinion. And, even later in his career, in the past decade, when Savage came back, I'd still be interested to see him. Always looked to be in great shape. He's one of those guys you could always thought could perform well, even though he was past his prime. Just very entertaining to the end. And iconic, I guess you would say, figure in the industry. So, sucks that he passed away. I was telling my boy Jason that I think the most unfortunate thing, aside from him obviously passing away at such a relatively young age, is that we'll never get to hear his induction speech into the WWE Hall of Fame, nor if they do a career DVD on him, which I assume they will, we won't get to hear his commentary. Sure, they had that DVD that came out last year, but it was more so his matches, and it wasn't necessarily a career anthology like the WWE does on a lot of their more popular, what do you want to call them, entertainers, wrestlers, whatever you want to call them. But yeah, I'm sure they're going to do a piece on that now. More of a retrospective piece than just his matches, but it just sucks that we won't be able to hear his commentary on it. But anyways, yeah, sad day for pro wrestling fans. But, everyone's life has to come to an end eventually, I guess. And if the predicted rapture that's supposed to end the world tomorrow does not come, I think it's going to be because Randy Savage, somewhere out there, dropped a flying elbow on it and stopped it from ending all of our lives in the world in general. So that's it for now. Have any thoughts on Randy Savage, if you were a fan of wrestling or if you still are? Where you think he ranks among the all-time greats? You don't have to say that. But if you were influenced by him or just enjoyed him as a performer like I did, Definitely one of my all-time favorites. Definitely probably top three. I don't even know who the other ones would be. Booker T and someone else. Can't even think at the moment. But Randy Savage is definitely up at the top of my list, if not the very top. So if you guys, like I said, are wrestling fans or were growing up, I'd like to hear your thoughts on Macho Man Savage. And that's it for now. Till next time, I'm out.